Hi, welcome to Stir 'em Up. I'm Susie Montgomery.
And I'm Naomi. And today we're talking about, is my sin causing a suspicious spirit?
Yeah, so this is my topic and just something I came across in a devotion, my daily devotion. I was reading the Bible chronologically and it just comes alive.
I know, I'm like very interested.
You are?
Yeah.
Well, sometimes I have this way. So the question I would like to say is, are there times in your life that you might feel like suspicious about somebody's motives or why they have done something?
Yeah.
And maybe there's times that you feel like there's just people just are out to get you. Like this person is just specifically wanting to get you. And
you kind of sometimes think like the worst of their motives.
Yes.
Even
think
though
the worst of their motive.
They probably, yeah.
I've been there too often. And I have to step back and say, why am I, where is this coming from? And honestly, we like to entertain those thoughts.
Yeah.
Oh, she did this because she thinks, we want to entertain those thoughts. But the problem with this is that we're addressing the fruit and not the root. And I was reading in Psalm 69, it was a psalm of David, and it was after the sin with Bathsheba.
Okay.
So we know about David's grievous sin, and it was horrible. So in essence, David rapes this woman, Bathsheba, which, by the way, Bathsheba means voluptuous. Did you know that?
I did know that. It's ironic.
It's interesting.
Yeah.
So, and then David, a man after God's own heart, I'll remind you, he decides, I need to cover this sin up.
Yeah.
So instead of making it right, he pulls this, her husband Uriah in, and Uriah, being a man of integrity, does not go to his wife and sleep in the same home with her. He stays on the sidewalk. And so David's like, oh man, now I can't even say it's Uriah's kid. And so and I mean, that's just grievous enough.
Yeah.
But he takes it a step further and he sends a death wish in the very hand of Uriah to the commander to say, put him in the front lines of the battle. Uriah dies.
Yeah.
Then David, just picture this, being the hero. Oh, this poor woman of this soldier who has died in my army, I'm going to make you a queen.
Yeah.
So he pretends like he has done this honorable thing of restoring this woman back to society.
Yeah.
And really, he was the one that caused it all.
Yeah.
And he's acting like the hero. Horrible, horrible sin.
I know. It's like one of the worst when you,
And you read it, and every time I read it, I'm like, don't do it, David.
Yeah.
Don't do it. And there's so many things that we could talk about in that story, but today I want to talk about in Psalm 69, the psalm that was written after David's sin with Bathsheba, one of the psalms. David begins the psalm by saying, save me, O God. And his language is in such despair. He's like, oh God, these people, I'm weary with my crying. In verse 3, he says, why is he in such despair at this point? He says this, more in number are those who hate me without a cause, in verse 4. So David is asking God, why doesn't God do anything to make his enemies nothing? And why is God allowing his enemies to be this way to him? And he's saying, don't you hear what these people are doing to me? Don't you even care? And he's actually saying to God, why don't you defend me? And I was reading this and I felt such despair as I was reading the psalm. But then I realized, here's David, this man who has done this grievous sin. And then it's interesting that in this chapter, his attitude, like the whole tone of his voice or his writing changes. And when I read David, I kind of put myself in his shoes, you know, obviously, but there are things that in Bible stories that I'm like, I've done that. Yeah, I can relate. Do you?
Yeah, I feel like whenever, especially, that's why I love the stories in the Bible, because I feel like you read them and you're like, I can relate to that. Or even if you can't relate, it's definitely like, it's relatable in the sense of you're like, I do not want to be like that.
Yeah.
Or, wow, like that's something I really aspire to.
Right. And reading Saul and David,
Yeah.
I definitely look at their things and that or their sins or
Yeah.
their failures, and I'm like, oh God, I do that too.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry. But do you identify with a certain Bible character in the
I don't know about a certain one, but so my name is Naomi Ruth. And so I always like have loved the story of Naomi and Ruth, probably because it's, you know, my name. But I mean, I feel like there's so much in that book that I relate to.
And do you ever like see people in your life that you kind of identify them as a person in the Bible?
I don't know. Do you?
I do, because like my husband, I think of him as Daniel.
Okay.
Because my husband just always does right no matter what.
Yeah.
You know, obviously he's a sinner, but he always chooses the right thing.
Yeah.
And like Daniel did. And
Yeah.
I always pictured him like Daniel.
I don't do that, but maybe I should. I don't know. I'm a Bible character for everyone I know.
Yeah. I also think of my son like Joseph in the Bible.
Yeah.
And so anyhow, there's little things in there that I kind of
Yeah.
identify with, but you don't do that very often.
I don't. I don't know. I guess I never have.
Maybe I'm just weird about it.
No.
But anyhow, back to our topic. In verse 5, David is awakened to his hypocrisy. And he understands that he is the guilty one, that he is the one that sinned against God. So David, you know how sometimes you get angry and you're like, why am I so angry at this thing? And you don't understand, like one day it doesn't bother you and one day you're super angry, like someone cut you off and you're angry. Well, anger is just like a light on your dashboard of your car. It's just saying, check your engine, check your engine, check your engine.
That's
it doesn't
really good.
tell you necessarily how to fix your engine. It just tells you something's wrong.
And it doesn't fix the problem.
Right.
Like, you know, like sometimes people like will blow up on something and then be like, okay, well, now I got that out, you know, but you're right. It's like a symptom of something
it's
that's
just
deeper.
Identifying there's a root cause. And in this case, David's root was he was not willing to expose his sin with Bathsheba at this point. And David turns from, God, why aren't you doing anything, to, oh God, I am the sinner here.
Yeah.
And we see this with Paul too, saying I'm the chief of sinners. Yeah. And I just wanted to identify that when you have these struggles in your life of maybe thinking that someone is out to get you and you're super cynical of their motives, we don't know why people are doing what they're doing, or you're angry, all of these things are just roots. Or they're flashing lights saying, hey, Susie, check your heart. Yeah. What is it that is between me and God? Because we try to hide our sin from God. Yeah. And we try to be the hero. And maybe David looked like the hero to everyone around him, but David knew. Yeah. And there was something in him, it's the Holy Spirit saying, this is not right. Right. And though we sin, we have to suffer the consequences of our sin. Yeah. But when those things come up, don't try to modify your behavior. And I think that's the danger that we do.
Or put it on somebody else. Sometimes when, like if you're thinking the worst of somebody, you know, you're really...
Which is in essence trying to forget the root. You're just trying to say it's your fault instead of what is going on in my heart. But a lot of what we do is we modify our behavior. So we want to say, oh, I'm angry. You know what? I'm going to stop and count to 10 before I say anything, which is all great tips. Yeah. But what is causing the anger? Yeah. What is causing your suspicion? What is causing all of these things? And in the case of David, we understand that he was so suspicious of everyone's actions because he was keeping a secret from everybody. But finally it came out in the open. And David said, against thee and thee only have I sinned. And David recognized his sin against God and got it right. And then at the end of that passage, he has sweet communion with the Lord. And when things are right with God, things are right with people, with our brothers and sisters in Christ. Yeah. And that is beautiful.
That's really good.
Yeah. So I want to encourage you or to stir you up to understand, don't just address the fruit of the problem. Get down to the root. What is it that is causing you to be suspicious or angry or any other kind of behavior that you have? What is the root? Find out what the root is and get that right with God. I hope this stirred you up today.
Go stir them up.
Go stir them up.